Hi, I'm Mike Hodgson, a lead physiotherapist. I first became interested in being a physio when I was age 13. I had a keen interest in sport and was looking for something that would combine that with something medical, and realised at a young age I probably wouldn't make it as a GP. So I geared all of my A levels and O levels into looking towards being a physiotherapist, which I applied for in 1988, and I trained at Bradford Hospital Schools of Physio, and I qualified there with a diploma in physiotherapy. My first involvement with Schools Advisory Service started in 2019. My original brief was to look to improve the access to physiotherapy locally in the Yorkshire area, and that then became a slightly more widespread role in terms of covering Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. The wellness team also asked me to look at improving their resource facilities, so I looked and worked closely to improve the website and the design and the flow of the information that was on there, so that teaching staff could access easy to obtain exercises and advice on a whole range of conditions. The game changer though was when COVID came along, because all the clinics that we would have used to provide physiotherapy had to close. So we introduced a triage system, and from that the referrals would come through, and I was able to remotely help patients who were struggling with a whole range of musculoskeletal conditions and provide them with a bespoke exercise program, advice, posture and things they could do within their own working and home environment to facilitate their recovery. We also saw during the COVID pandemic quite a lot of requests for people who were struggling with post-COVID or long COVID symptoms. Now this was a new challenge because it never existed before, so we did an awful lot of work with helping teaching staff who'd been exposed to COVID and had quite devastating post-COVID symptoms, and we found that the programme we introduced gave them a huge amount of help and support, because at the time people were really looking in the dark because we'd never had COVID before, and here we were struggling to keep our staff fit and well, and we had to find ways to be quite proactive in order to facilitate some recovery, and this has proved extremely valuable, as well as our normal work within the musculoskeletal field. Within the school environment, there are a whole series of factors that can cause musculoskeletal conditions to the teaching staff and the support staff that work with them. So that can include such things as poor posture from being sat for a prolonged period on a chair, or a chair that turns out to be too low, which can create an increased pressure in the lower back and lead to back pain. Also, a lot of teachers tend to spend some time bending over pupils and teaching them in a stoop standing position, which again increases the load on the lower back and can cause back pain. But beyond that, we also look after quite a lot of schools that have special needs children, and at times these children can become difficult and problematic and may result in hair pulling, which can cause neck pain from almost whiplash type injuries. Beyond that, obviously you have PE teachers who might be teaching a lesson and end up pulling a calf muscle or hamstring during the course of the lesson. Within the school, the wider community, there are facilities management and caretaking type staff, and they too might end up with sort of shoulder or elbow pain as a result of repetitive type activity during the course of their duties, and these too are also managed successfully through our service. In terms of physiotherapy, 1 in 3 of the referrals we receive are for low back pain. Low back pain tends to be a very common problem within schools and within the working environment generally, and we tend to see 2 types of low back pain problems. There's the acute problem, where there's been a specific injury or moment where someone who was pain-free suddenly has pain from, say, a lift or a twist. And the other type of back pain is what we call mechanical back pain. That's a gradual build-up of pain as a result of poor posture over many months and often years of bad sitting or positions. And that comes down to the mass within the spine, within the discs of the spine, which I'll talk about in a second. So the acute low back pain is always best managed with an immediate referral to physiotherapy, so we can get on top of the symptoms quickly and help facilitate the healing process. Sometimes these acute back pains may just be central pain, and sometimes patients will have what we call peripheralised pain, or pain going down the leg, often what people term as sciatica. The sooner you start physiotherapy intervention, the sooner you get the process of healing going, and we would always facilitate that process with home exercises, management advice, and some hands-on therapy and pain relief. The mechanical back pain is the commonly seen condition where someone starts with a niggle and then they might have had it for months or years. When we're sitting, the pressure generated in the lower spine within the discs, which are the shock absorbers of the spine, can be anything from 250 to 300 pounds per square inch. So think of a car tyre at 30 pounds per square inch and times that by 10. That's how much pressure there is on a normal, healthy disc, which will cope with that. But if we slouch, it increases the loading, so all that pressure is just through the bottom of the spine. It's a bit like sitting and bending your finger back. After a while, it starts to hurt. Now, in different positions, the pressure changes. When you stood upright, the pressure in the spine is only 100 pounds per square inch. But as soon as you bend over, it goes up 50%. So there's 50% more pressure on your back, stooping over a pupil, or even just bending over to clean your teeth than what there is when you're upright. Lying down is the least loaded position, and that's about 30 pounds per square inch. So often patients will report that they're better in lying, better stood up and on the move, and worse with their symptoms when they're bending over, or particularly when they're sat down. And part of our management is to make patients understand what those pressures involve and why changing position regularly is a good way of managing that low back pain. There may be other factors that we find on assessment, such as some restricted mobility, and we can use manual therapy techniques to mobilise that area of the spine. There may be pain, there might be swelling, and again, we can use electrotherapy type techniques to improve that function and that pain and swelling relief. The most important thing is always to have a good self-management process, and part of my role as a physiotherapist is always to provide bespoke exercises that patients can access easily and perform at home so that they can then help improve their own self-management and therefore speed up that healing process. The lumbar spine is not the only area that's affected by poor posture. The neck and shoulders, and also what we call the thoracic spine, the rib cage, are significantly impacted by a poor postural position. You may not know this, but the head itself weighs something like 5 kilograms. Imagine holding a 5 kilogram weight out in front of you. Your arms would soon get very tired. This is what happens if you sit with your neck sticking forward. The muscles and the ligaments of the neck soon become overstretched with the burden of holding that heavy weight. If you bring everything close to you, it's a lot easier for the bones of the neck to withstand the pressure of the weight of the head through the neck, and therefore the bones do the work, not the soft tissues. So that can significantly reduce pressure into the neck and therefore help control pain. Shoulders are often impacted by poor posture because when you sit slouching forward, it pulls the shoulder joint slightly out of position, and the tendons that mobilise and stabilise the shoulder are more liable to rub against the bones of the shoulder and become slightly frayed and inflamed, and therefore that can lead to pain. So that's why it's really important that not just that we look at the posture for the lower back, but that will also improve the position of the mid-back, the neck and the shoulders, and significantly reduce that postural or mechanical pain, as we call it, through the whole spine as a whole. Here are some tips and advice on good posture. Find a chair that has a full back so that your lumbar spine is fully supported at all times, and this will prevent you from slouching, which creates pain. Ensure that the chair actually fits right underneath the desk. If there are arms in the way, remove them, because otherwise you will end up perching, and this will create more pressure within the spine, which will lead to pain. Make sure that your elbows are always tucked in by your side, so whenever you're sat, you can then comfortably reach the mouse or the keyboard in order to facilitate a better posture, because if you have to reach forward, then you'll slouch, and that will create more pressure and therefore more pain. Always ensure that the screen of the laptop or the desktop is level with the top of your head, so that when you're looking at it, it's in a straight line. If you have to look down, then you will slouch. The weight of your head will drop forward, creating more pressure through the neck, therefore leading to pain, and you will increase the pressure in the lower back, which will also create a stretch and increase the pain potentially from being sat in that position all day. Make sure that you take regular breaks from being sat. Just get up and walk about. There are some simple chair exercises that are very easy to do, and movement through the spine is always a good idea, and this will reduce the pressures through the spine and therefore reduce pain. To access further information, please look at our resources website, where there are a whole range of bespoke back exercises for posture. If you're still struggling, it's always good to have a full chair and desk assessment, and this can be accessed either online that you can do yourself or through a request to your line manager for a full DSE assessment. It is very important that you remember that physiotherapy is very much a course of treatment. Most conditions require time to heal. Physiotherapy will help facilitate the healing process and improve the quality of the healing, but it won't necessarily speed up the rate at which it heals. To get the best out of your physiotherapist, make sure that you attend regularly and that you follow the home exercises and self-management advice given in between those sessions. I often see patients who have successfully completed a course of physio, but then end up coming back because the problem has reoccurred. And on a closer examination, it turns out that they will have stopped doing the exercises and following the self-management process that very much got them better in the first place. So even beyond seeing your physio for the last time, please make sure that you keep going with that very self-management process to get the best outcome in the longer term. As physiotherapists, we deal with a whole range of different musculoskeletal conditions, from low back pain to tennis elbow. However, I recently helped a lady who had a very rare spinal condition called DISH, which stands for diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's a condition that's quite similar to ankylosing spondylitis, which is where the soft tissues of the spine start to become fused. This lady had struggled to get any help through the NHS. Her GP didn't know what it was. The physio that she saw was a little bit less than helpful. Fortunately, she was able to access our care through the wellness service. By the time I spoke to her, she was very low and quite depressed, and she just felt that no one was listening and she didn't know what direction to go in. Fortunately, we were able to give her some really good advice on the nature of the condition, on how to self-manage, on how to best manage her pain, and what the best exercises were for her to do at home in order to facilitate movement through the spine in a safe and constructive way. This was all done remotely through our triage service, which she found really helpful. On the follow-up call, she was a different lady. She was in a much better place, her exercises were really helping her, her pain was much reduced, and she was much more active. She was very, very pleased that she'd reached out for this service, and she also had further help through the rest of our wellness team in terms of her pain management and through her mindfulness. This is a great example on how we can help not just the normal run-of-the-mill musculoskeletal conditions, but something that's a little bit more out of the ordinary. And that's what we pride ourselves on, our flexibility, our knowledge and our experience. Physiotherapy can be accessed through a call to our wellness support team or by using the school wellbeing app. This inquiry will result in a phone call from the support team. And if it's a musculoskeletal condition or one that can be helped by physiotherapy, then this will be sent through our triage process. A referral will be made to our network of national local physiotherapy provider clinics, and then they will contact you and book you in for the initial consultation.